To multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. Then we simplify the result. Symbolically, a divided by b times c divided by d is, notice we're multiplying a times c, the numerators, and multiplying b times d, the denominators. This is, of course, assuming that b and d are not 0. Remember, when the denominator is 0, it is undefined. And it can be helpful to divide out common factors, basically reduce before multiplying. For example, 2/3 times 5/7. To multiply these, we do 2 times 5 divided by 3 times 7. 2 times 5 is 10, and 3 times 7 is 21. In our next example, we have 21 over 25 times 30 over 14. Notice that there are common factors in the numerators and denominators. 21 and 14 have a common factor of 7. 25 and 30 have a common factor of 5. So we can multiply first, or we can reduce and then multiply. Sometimes reducing and multiplying is the easier way. So let's look at how we can do that. First, I'm just going to copy the original problem. 21 and 14 have a 7 in common. So we can see how many times 7 goes into 21. That is 3 times. How many times will 7 go into 14? 2. And now 25 and 30, they have a 5 in common. 5 will go into 25 5 times, and 5 will go into 30 6 times. Now when we multiply, in the numerator we have 3 times 6, which is 18, and in the denominator we have 5 times 2, which is 10. We're dealing with much smaller numbers, so it's a little bit easier to multiply as opposed to doing 21 times 30 and 25 times 14, which still works, but this way is a little bit easier because we're dealing with smaller numbers. Now we still have to look at the result and see if it can be reduced more, and it looks like it can be because 18 and 10 are both divisible by 2. They have a common factor of 2, so we want to reduce again. Since 2 is the common factor, we can divide 18 by 2 to get 9, and we can divide 10 by 2 to get 5. And now we have the simplified product. In this example, again, we can reduce before we multiply. So let's just copy the original problem first. And now we want to ask, do 6 and 8 have anything in common? They do. They have a common factor of 2. So 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 8 4 times. And now 7 and 77, what do they have in common? They have a 7 in common. So we want to divide that out. 77 divided by 7 is 11, and 7 divided by 7 is 1. And now we can multiply. We have 3 times 1, which is 3. And we have 11 times 4, which is 44. And then be careful with the sign. We have a positive times a negative. That means the product is negative. There's nothing to reduce in the final answer, so we can say that this is the final product. In part D, notice we have 3 factors. We're multiplying 3 things. Since it's all multiplication, we can just go through and multiply as usual. Remember that it's easiest to reduce first before we multiply, if possible. So looking at the 4 and the 16, do they have anything in common? Their GCF is 4. So let's divide each of those by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And now 27 and 3, they have a 3 in common. 27 divided by 3 is 9, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. We can continue going further and looking at the 4/5. Notice we're multiplying this, which is now negative 1/4 times 4/5. These 4 are in common, so we can reduce using the GCF method here. Their GCF, greatest common factor, is 4. So we'll divide each of those by 4, giving us 1 and 1. Now the 5 has nothing else in common in the numerator other than 1. Same thing with the 9, nothing else in common other than 1. So now we can go through and multiply. Remember, with multiplication, we look at the numerators. So we have 1, 1, 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And look at the denominators. 9 times 1 is 9, times 5 is 45. Now we can look at the sign. We have a negative times a positive. If we have an even number of negatives, that means our final product is positive. So we have positive 1/45.